Hello, welcome to Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health. This is episode 55. We're discussing the mental health impacts of social media on teens and adults with a very special guest, Sri Srinivasan, CEO and co founder of Digimentors. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and my website. We're also live on Sri's YouTube, so thank you to everyone watching there. Don, this is another one of those really kind of great topics, great guests, and I'm really excited. There, we both have a lot to say about social media and mental health. And you wrote a blog post just this afternoon. We'll get to it later today. I'll talk about the blog post I wrote as well. But real quickly, Don, your first thoughts when you think about social media and mental health.
Yeah, I think that's, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've used social media for the last 20 years, and there's so many good things that I've been able to accomplish with Denim Day and my book and other things because of it. And then there's the downside of using social media, which can really affect your mental health. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
I am too. It's something that when we were preparing the show and I thought about it, I realized that I had some very strong feelings about social media, and I was able to kind of share some of my kind of personal thoughts, just be really candid about how I feel it impacts me and how it impacts me as a parent, how it might impact Emily as well. Um, One thing I want to do is to thank everyone watching on replay, because you're most likely getting this opening a bit, and we appreciate you coming back to watch the show. Um, the our last show, Dawn, that we did was also really impactful. It was with Allison DeCamp, Compassion Before Cleanup, Mental Health, Clutter, and Shame. And during the conversation, a number of people shared their own stories about clutter, and I put this picture on the screen, kind of feeling brave and vulnerable to show how messy my office had gotten and how difficult it was for me. I wanted to give the update about 2 days after the show. I was able to get it to this in terms of the sofa and the carpet. And one of the things Allison kind of reminded me of, even though that you could still see the desk and the bureau, it's progress, not perfection. And I think that really applies to a lot of what we talk about on this show. So I just wanted to share that with folks. We do have some folks watching. Paula Kiger is watching from Tallahassee, Florida. Paula, thank you, of course. Connie Corley is watching. Greetings from Los Angeles. Connie is in a WhatsApp group on AI that Sri maintains, and she just saw the post about the show yesterday. Connie, thank you so much for joining us on LinkedIn. John Borstein is watching from New York on Facebook, and my good friend Walter Grayson is watching. He's excited for tonight. Beautiful evening in St. Paul, Minnesota. And of course, my mom watching from Hastings-on-Hudson, New York. No pressure, Sri. That's my mom watching, so you got to be careful with what you say. Mm-hmm. But without, and then Kate's watching from Milwaukee. Kate is Dawn's good friend and landlady, I guess, but
yep.
More friend than landlady. But with that, I want to go ahead and bring Sri on so we can get this conversation started. There's a lot that we want to cover, a lot that we can cover. So let's go ahead. Sri Srinivasan, CEO and co-founder of Digimentors, which is a sponsor of the show, gives us pro bono support for the show. Sri, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello,
And I don't have to
everybody.
tell you to unmute, which is nice.
Yes. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Neil, I see you got that room tidied up. That's a lot. It doesn't have to be all the way through to be perfect. Doesn't have to be perfect to be good. So I congratulate you on that. And
Thank you.
when you showed me the mess, that was actually the first time I'd seen the whole room because I've not been in there. So to see it, it tells you something about this virtual world we live in, that you see only certain aspects of people's lives. And this ties in directly to what we're talking about. Someone asked me for an update, say, how you been? And then I wrote down like what was happening with the kids and all that. And then I wrote, all of this is the positive stuff. The non-positive, I'll tell you in person. And we should never forget that when you see people's lives online, that's a curated, perfection-oriented vision that they're showing you, and it may not be the case. In some cases, obviously it is, but in other cases it's not, and you never know what's happening in the lives of other people. I will say that right now I've been planning to go see a new movie called Tony, which is a story about Anthony Bourdain and how he became Anthony Bourdain and a particular period in his life, the great famous chef. And I used to say Anthony Bourdain has the best life, because I was to say how jealous I am of him, because he got to, the CNN show perhaps, where he got to travel the world and have lunch with Obama in Vietnam and go to this place and that place. What a perfect life he had. And some of you know how that story ended, and it just tells you that you never know what's going on with somebody's life and their relationships and their entire world that they're showing you. And social media has a lot to do with that. And so I think about that. And we also, when I see people who I've only known online, I see them and say, wow, you're much taller than I thought, because everybody's not this size as they are on Zoom calls and StreamYard and everything else. But I want to thank both of you for the enormous effort you put into these shows. You've been doing this now 56 episodes, I believe. And
today, this is 55.
55. This is number 55. And so what you have done to talk about these issues, to the range of guests, the type of stories, you're not afraid to go to places where most people are afraid to go. And I salute both of you for doing this. It's so important and so special. And if I can just make a point to our non-Indian audience, this is not typical to have in Neil, South Asian and Indian man who's willing to talk about these issues, a man at all, but a South Asian man in particular. But there he is. He's been doing this for 55 episodes and more over these years, and I salute you for doing that. And Don, I know your partnership with him makes it possible for him to talk about these things, and you work together so well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sri. I'm so glad we're recording this.
Wait, this is on your live? Wait,
we're live. Oh, we started the show, Sri. I didn't tell you.
I didn't know that.
We went live
I didn't realize
on Facebook,
that.
Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and my website. We're also
hilarious.
on your YouTube, so thank you for that. I do want to mention in my rush to kind of bring you on quickly, for folks who may not know your background, who there may be people who are watching the show who don't know you from your other online shenanigans, as you call them, and our Sunday show, the New York Times Read Along. Sri is the former chief digital officer for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and was a professor of what they used to call new media at Columbia School of Journalism. But Sri, you're wearing a sticker with the Met logo on it. What's that about?
So I wanted to show you this because I've just arrived from an afternoon at the Met. I was able to take, we do a lot of salons for friends and others to talk about interesting, important issues. And we did a walking salon today with the chief exhibition designer at the Met, Daniel Kershaw, and we went for a walk through the Met. And now at the Met, they used to have buttons, some of you know, that use little metal pins, and they moved to this. And I just wanted to say to everybody, as much as we love and use digital media, social media, our phones, etc., go to a museum. Of course, you can get to the Met, go to the Met, but this is not about the Met. This is about the fact that every town in America has a museum, historical home. There's something that you can go to. And you may have heard the stat, there are more museum-like places in America than there are Starbucks and McDonald's combined. So you have no excuse not to make plans this weekend to take your children, your parents, somebody in your life and go to a museum. Of course, the Met and the big museums are great, but go support independent small museums, and it'll help your mental health if you do that. So I urge everybody to make a plan this weekend to go somewhere I'm sure within an hour, there is some kind of historical place, art museum, some place you can go and disconnect from all this technology.
I didn't know that stat, Sri. Thank you for sharing that. Our good friend Stephen Kaplan, who's watching, he says, sorry, he's a few minutes late. He's been looking forward to this big time, this topic. And Connie says that she's glad to be here for this critical topic. And for anyone who might have joined us late, we're talking about social media and mental health. And Sri started off by talking about even just using this example of when you see us online and you see, what is on camera, you can't tell what is behind someone or, in front of someone in terms of the camera. And it's that curated view that you get and that you get on social media. So there are a range of different things that we were hoping to talk about, Sri. One of them is, of course, this lawsuit, this settlement that Meta signed with, I think it was 47 states and the District of Columbia, $17.1 billion. What was Facebook doing that they were being sued and that they need to actually settle the lawsuit? What's that all about?
Well,
Where
do we start, and what can we say? I will say one thing, that since you asked about the museum stat, because you asked, I said, oh my God, I better check it. I've not worked full time in the museum world for 10 years, talk on mental health issues. I was let go from the Met because they were having financial difficulties. On the same day, they got rid of the chief digital officer, chief marketing officer, chief design officer. And look, the Facebook is giving me a thumbs up there. But I was, you can imagine the mental health issues I went through losing such a high profile job, and I loved it. But since you asked about the numbers, I just fact checked it while we were doing this. But there are about 14,000 Starbucks and about 11,000 McDonald's, and they're just a little more than that on what are considered museums in America. So that's the fact there. But in terms of Zuckerberg, and I'll just step back, if I may, just to say that
Please.
We have seen that the world of social media and the people who run the social media world have done enormous damage to hundreds of millions of people over the last 15, 20 years. There is no way to disguise that. There's no way to hide it, no way to sugarcoat it, that they have damaged so many people. There have been good things that have happened from social media, including the way to connect. Some of what we're doing now is a result of people wanting to connect, and we're live on all these channels, and we have a business in part because of social media, and I've been able to train and travel around the world because people want to learn more. That's all great. But if you somehow could magically remove social media from the last 20 years of progress and what has happened, the world would be a better place. And fast forward now, most of those same people are now in charge of our AI world. And AI is much more, the exponential power of AI is documented, and we know. So we are in a position we should be really worried. I'll give you some examples of why I say all this, because it sounds very dramatic. And the reason I say this is because Zuckerberg and company, not just Zuckerberg, but the entire organization and the industry, had multiple forks in the road. And every time they had a chance to take a road, let's say the better road or the higher road, they took the road that would do more damage. At first, you could say, well, they didn't know they were doing this damage, and therefore it's okay. But that is not true. They knew, and they still did it. And there is lawsuit after lawsuit, hundreds, maybe thousands of lawsuits going on right now against Meta, which show what happened. And there are documentation that went in front of Mark, and he was told, look, Mark, we're doing great damage to girls. If we change this one thing, we will not harm as many girls, and our engagement will drop off, but it'll bounce back in 6 months. Every single person I've ever met personally who I know, well, both of you watching and your audience, every one of us would say, okay, dial it down. It's okay. We'll take the hit. We'll come back in 6 months. He said, no, we keep going. And he did that in multiple decisions. And the social media world makes hundreds of decisions like that and has made hundreds of decisions. Those same people are now in charge of AI, which is going to do so much more damage. And when I said, the damage done to girls, it was also true to millions of boys. And that's what we have to absorb, that this thing we love, the thing we are used to, the thing we are attached to, the Instagram we love, the Facebook most of us still love, the X that I'm obsessed with, all of that is doing incredible harm to kids, to adults, etc. I also want to make the point, and then I'll take some questions on this, is to note that companies have for decades done terrible things, often that have resulted in real damage. But the scale and ambition of AI and social media makes it possible for the damage to be much, much worse. You may know that when the Flintstones started, they were sponsored by cigarette companies. Eventually, they moved out and were sponsored by non-cigarette companies. But that's the reality of business, that they go where they can go and they will do whatever they can do. So to think about that parallel is also sobering. And then at the same time, not to let off any of our venerated nonprofits or educational institutions, there was a moment in the 60s where the Harvard School of Public Health had a chance to criticize and change forever what to blame for health problems in America. And they could have chosen sugars or fats. And they were convinced by the sugar industry to take sugar off the table and to focus on fats. And everything that has resulted from in America's health problems and the outcomes that we have can be traced to that. So corporations are going to do so much damage. It's how much scale, at what scale are they doing it, that matters. And that's why we're in this position.
Thank you, Sri. I'm reminded of an interview that we did on the New York Times read along with Jeff Horowitz, where they did research and took new Instagram accounts, completely untouched and not following anyone. At the time, if I remember correctly, they followed a few gymnastics accounts around the Olympics, and very quickly the algorithm started feeding them accounts that were posting pictures of young girls with very little clothing on. It very quickly moved people to this type of content without seeking it out. And so I think that's a great starting point for this conversation, that we have to understand that the platforms that we're talking about, and we're concerned about our own responses and emotional kind of interactions with it, and what it does to us, and what our kids may experience. But at the foundation, it's the platforms themselves and the algorithms that have a lot of responsibility on this. I want to pull Dawn into the conversation because, Dawn, you wrote a blog post for the show that I think speaks to a lot of these issues in terms of when you think about the personal impact. You wrote, social media once shaped my self-worth. What will it do to my grandchildren? In the beginning of social media, I felt that I had to prove that I was successful, pretty, smart, and funny. Now I don't really care what people think or how they perceive me because I have learned to use social media as a tool for educating people. Can you talk a little bit about the early days of social media, as you put it, and kind of what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, so in my blog post, I wrote about a little bit about my childhood, growing up as relatively poor in a Catholic school where most people had money, and I was not liked, and I was teased and bullied, and I spent like a lot of time being made fun of for my hand-me-down clothes and the way I looked. And those same individuals that did that bullying and that teasing were the same people that were vying for Facebook friend status. And at the time, that's just kind of what you did. Those were the people names that you knew. And so you said yes to every person that was a familiar name to you from grade school and high school. And it felt like a lot of pressure to me. I felt like I needed to prove that dumpy little kid, that poor little kid, that little crybaby girl had turned into something that would supersede the expectations of what these people might have thought about me as I was growing up. And it was, we talk about like how many likes or how many thumbs up versus how many hearts, or how many comments people make on our posts. And in the beginning it was really all the good stuff, until I realized that it was a disservice to myself in particular, but also to other people who were watching like watching my Facebook posts. And I have to say that, I was pretty impressed with a lot of my friends on Facebook who, when I started talking about my advocacy work and like what happened to me and the trauma that I experienced, a lot of people reached out to me and said, oh my gosh, like this is what happened in my life, or, my dad was killed, or I experienced this trauma. And I began to realize that there was a really huge amount of the population that, didn't skirt through life with fancy houses and beautiful vacations and kids that behaved all the time, and clear of mental health issues. And I just made the conscious decision that instead of only posting the fabulous things, that I was going to start talking about the challenges that I was facing in my life. And when I started doing that is when people, some of the things that I get the most interaction on are my mental health posts. When I post about not having a great day, or being challenged with getting out of bed in the morning, or doing just normal everyday functional things that you have to do, and doing them with a lot of difficulty and peril. And that's where people, I think, can really relate. And a lot of us can't relate to the fancy houses and the beautiful vacations and the nice cars and all the other things. So that's really where my kind of mental health journey has gone with Facebook and other social media sites.
Dr. Tachi says she applauds you for sharing the challenges, Dawn, and being real on social. And she said, I think people are so drawn to vanity metrics on social media because it shows that people are paying attention. For some, it may be the attention they don't get in real life. John Lakshmi is watching, a friend of ours through the South Asian Journalists Association. Important point to post good and bad in terms of keeping everyone honest. I've said on the show several times before that it's your post on about mental health that really, I mean, we'd been friends for a long time, and then when I saw you posting about mental health, I looked up to you even more. I don't post as much about my own mental health in between the shows. I use the shows as a vehicle for putting some stuff out there. But I've always appreciated your candor and how real you keep it. I think that this issue, this question of what the social media kind of posts do to you is really important. So I want to share, Sri, before I come back to you, the blog post that I wrote, and one of the posts, one of the points I made in it talks about that very point. If social media can impact my self-worth, what does it do to teens? Preparing teens for social media isn't only about ground rules and restrictions. It's about building up a sense of self-worth that can stand on its own. More importantly, it's also about turning on that selfie camera and taking a long, hard look at our own behavior. What I wanted to really share and put out there, and I did this through social media and the blog post, is that I know how the algorithms work. I know how social media, people are not likely to see your posts unless you push them out and send them by email and really work the system, direct messages, Twitter, DMs, everything that we've been doing for years. But still, when I see likes and comments on a post, I feel good. And when posts don't hit, I feel, somehow like I'm like I did something wrong, or people don't like me. People don't appreciate what I'm putting out. Even today at noon, I put out 2 posts on social media, and I intentionally put out one post because it was an anniversary date. But then I also was sharing my blog post. I shared a post. Today is the 46 years since we moved into the house in Hastings-on-Hudson, New York, and I had a cute picture of myself in front of the door when I was 7 years old. And it's so cute that I'm going to have to bring it up and see where my numbers are even now, which was, this was the issue this morning. But it's too cute not to share, Sri. But what I found, I was meeting with someone, and I shared. I looked at this. There's this post. Let me actually make this bigger for all of you. This is the picture of me when I was 7, and look, no, yeah, 33 reactions and 12 comments. People sharing this whole thing because my mom has put the house on for sale, and I was reflecting on what it means to when you lose your childhood home. I scrolled up to the text, but this is the picture. And at the time, I also looked at this blog post I had put up. 2 reactions, 2 comments, one from Sri, thank you, Sri, a couple of shares, and it was like, well, what's that about? Like, I didn't get any traction on that. It's still, I mean, I'm not saying that post bothers me, but that very idea still is challenging. And if it affects me, a relatively well-adjusted 53-year-old man who runs social media accounts for several organizations, and I've been doing it for many years in different contexts. If I can still get brought down by that kind of those kind of numbers, relative numbers. Our kids, what about our kids? What about our teens that are going to start using social media soon? That really makes me concerned. Sri, any thoughts
Sure. Yeah.
on that?
Yeah. Lots of thoughts. One of the things you forgot to say is that the reason why, if you want your social media to succeed, you have to pay to play. These companies
Yeah.
decided that they want everyone to pay, and so if you pay, you get more traction. So don't forget that. And part of the what you said is all true, that these numbers are going down for everybody, unless you're a big celebrity or an influencer. You can be a young person and have enormous reach and impact and the tools you use. But also the fact that you posted 2 or 3 things together around the same time also affects the way the algorithm works. And so they're only going to serve up one, and they're going to serve up the one with the happy photo. Then you're talking about mental health. And so that's a factor. The other part is that you wrote a blog post and then you linked to it from Facebook, right? And Facebook wants you to put natively. They would have, if you should try a few days later to cut and paste that blog post into Facebook and just have it there as a post, as like a long status update, and see if that has an impact. But the fact is, even though I teach this stuff, I cannot figure it out. It's all moving around and it's hard to tell. But all of this goes back to what I call the original sin of social media. The original sin of social media is having the follower count be public, and the likes be public, and the reactions be public. And what I mean by that is you made it like currency. And once something is currency, people will steal it, fake it, forge it, buy it, do dastardly things with it. And that's what's happened. And so people are trying to game the system all the time. It's, no one's walked into a casino or thought about a casino without thinking, how do I make money? How do I really do well at blackjack? Or what can I do? Even if they're never going to cheat, they've all thought about it. Where are the cameras, right? That's what happens with money. And except that this is based on reputation and your well-being and all of that thrown in. I saw our friend John in the chat said, let's not talk about mental health, let's talk about mental status as a way of thinking it. I think that's an interesting idea, John. You should develop that more. But the word status now is so much, kind of like, it sounds like you're going to be typing up like my mental status is this as a specific thing. So it might get confused, but who knows? But going back to why we're here, what did Meta do? They made everything more and more addictive. And that's what they're paying the price for in this particular case that we're talking about. And $17 billion is a lot of money. But just to put it in perspective, if you were a person making $100,000, it's the equivalent of a cup of coffee, of premium coffee a day. That's the penalty you're going to pay. So you did a crime that caused mental anguish, body image issues for hundreds of millions of children around the world. And your only penalty is the equivalent of a cup of coffee in relative terms of your wealth. It's nothing to Facebook. This is no meaning. And they are not going to be punished by this. They're going to be emboldened by this, because this is a way for them to now push off more regulation, more scrutiny, more attention, and say, hey, we paid the price. Now we're moving on. But it's cost them nothing. They have learned nothing from this. Zuckerberg has learned nothing from this. And it doesn't matter, because there are more cases, including, you remember a few months ago, a young woman saying she was addicted to Facebook by the age of 8 or 9, or Instagram by 8 or 9. And that's the world that these corporations live in. And these tech bros, for the most part, men who run these things, have, to be called on, they have to be held accountable, but they won't. And now they have rigged at the highest level with the administration everything to make it easier for them to do all the things we're talking about. And that's just a reality. This is not saying that every company is bad, a corporation is bad, capitalism is bad. That is not what this is about. This is about men in charge who could have gone a different way and decided to go in the way that will do the most damage because it will do the most benefit to them.
For folks who may be joining us in the middle, I want to give a quick hello to Rahadian, who says he'll try to catch the replay. My best to all of you. You will be, if you joined us late, when we're done, you'll be able to watch the recording on the same links on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on my website. So thank you. Our guest is Sri Srinivasan. He is the CEO and co-founder of Digimentors. I'm so thankful that he's with us today. He is a former chief digital officer of the Metropolitan Museum of Art and a former professor at the Columbia School of Journalism in new media. This is going back 30 years when it used to be new media, and it's, of course, social media now, or just media, just content production, content creation. I do want to go back to 1.3 just to make sure that I heard it correctly when we were talking about social media posts and what hits, what doesn't hit. You made a comment where you said you're still sometimes trying to figure out exactly how the algorithms work, what's going to hit, what's not going to what's not going to get a lot of play. Does that mean some of your posts don't get a lot of engagement?
No, most of them.
You don't hit the jackpot every time?
No, not just that. It's actually terrible. And one of the ways I made peace with it a long time ago is by saying that this doesn't matter. I treat my X account not when I'd love to have millions of people see my stuff, but I made my peace with it a long time ago by saying to myself that I'm doing this because I want to get this out there. Even if a few people see it, that's okay. The right few people see it, that's all that matters. And then I started using X as an archive for me. I use it to document the things that I want to, and I created this hashtag called Life Highlight. This is a life highlight to talk about these issues. And what happens now is whenever I pass one day, if my kids want to or grandkids want to see what are the things I cared about in a certain part of my life, they just type in Life Highlight and all the things I cared about are there, right? You don't have to say, oh my God, I wonder what my grandpapa cared about. I tell you what I cared about. I label it Life Highlight. You'll get at least, 100, 200 things that really struck out to me, were so interesting to me, or I wanted to highlight. That's just an example. So what I mean by that is if you say this is not for everybody, it's not going to go for everybody. One of my things, my mantras is that most people will miss almost everything you do on social media. Most people will miss almost everything you do. Then you might say, why do we do it at all? Well, because not everything is about reaching everybody. And if you reach some people, and Neil knows this, I run a set of WhatsApp groups. That's a direct, meaningful challenge to the world of social media. WhatsApp is its own kind of social media, but I created these communities, and now I run 30 different topics and different groups, from baseball to hip hop to AI. And we do all of that so that people who want to talk about it can talk about it in these smaller circles rather than trying to reach everybody about everything all the time. And I feel much better about all of this once I started doing that, because I know the people who care about this, even if it's 20 people, they're there. And I'm not at all worried about these things. I will say one more thing about the idea of the numbers. You should feel better if you go back and look at your YouTube channels from tonight. You'll see your numbers automatically increased, even though not one new person may have watched your video, because YouTube decided to go to 1 second as the metric to count you as having seen your video. Somebody has seen your video. It's so stupid. 1 second means you just turned it on, jumped off, but you get a credit for that. Facebook was 3 seconds. And whenever anyone said, this 3 seconds makes no sense, I said, billions of dollars are traded on that idea that, General Motors pays ads because people watch for 3 seconds each instead of 15 or 20 or 30 seconds or 2 minutes. So these counts and these things are being manipulated by these companies. And there's been some wonderful, serious reporting that these men who run these companies, their children are not allowed to use these tools. They delay them as much as possible. The schools of poor people and the schools where poor people go is filled with digital stuff. This is pre-pandemic. It's filled with digital stuff. The schools where the rich tech bros go, their children have no digital stuff. And they're like talking about nature and, writing on chalkboards. And the other kids are filled with technology, obviously with the pandemic that changed. But that tells you something. I'm sure the manufacturer of cigarettes at some point wouldn't let their kids use cigarettes, right? It's that same way. So anyway, I hope that sets some of those ideas.
No, I appreciate that. Dawn, Sri brought up this idea of kind of what the children of tech bros and technology CEOs, what they're doing with social media. You touched upon that in your blog post as well, in terms of how your kids who are older, they're in their mid-20s now, 26, 22, or
24 and 25.
24, 25?
24, 25, and 27. Yeah.
27. So what has that been like for you? And when we have these conversations, it's always interesting because Emily is 13, so I'm kind of lagging behind. Sri's kids are actually a little bit younger than yours, in fact. But what were your thoughts around where your kids and even your grandkids are at with social media?
So I feel like my kids kind of got this sweet spot because they were, getting to be about 12 or 13 years old when like iPods and iPads came into play, and we bought those for them, but we monitored how they used them and what they used them for. They never got into Facebook at all. Their main way of communicating via social media is Snapchat, which has its own series of problems. But they really use Snapchat for texting. They don't text via their cell phone number. They text via their Snapchat account. That's how I communicate with them. I don't ever text them by their cell phone. I always text them via Snapchat. And I have a group Snapchat with all three of them. I have a group Snapchat with, two of them who have an interest in something the other one doesn't. It's really very interesting. I'm mostly worried for my grandchild, who is 1, and anytime I see that boy, he has somebody's cell phone in his hand. Or the television is on, or he gets way too much screen time. And I think that for parents, it is an easy way to distract a child, and it's very. I mean, I am not my grandson's parent, and I have strongly communicated my dislike of how much screen time my grandson gets and how that cell phone is always with him. But unfortunately, I can't mandate that. So I worry a little bit. And I wanted to say one other thing, because when Sri was talking, this hit me. I play a lot of games on my phone. Mostly number games because I'm a weirdo and I like number games. But I get a lot of ads, right? And I think there are times when my husband looks over and all these ads are about weight loss. All my ads are about weight loss. GLP-1s, exercise programs, things that women can do to look better. They show, AI animation of skinny girls, and it is amazing how much that affects me, and how much I think about losing weight. And I know that it has a lot to do with all those ads that pop up on my phone consistently. And I, as you mentioned, Neil, I am 54 years old, and it really affects my mental health. And so, and I just can't imagine how that must affect a 13-year-old girl who has self-esteem issues.
And who may not have self-esteem issues, but they get self-esteem issues.
Yes, right, right.
Yeah, it develops. That's something that we tried hard to do in our family. Emily turned 13 this last April 9th. I'm not going to forget her birthday live on air. And we waited until then to give her a fully functioning cell phone. She had a Chromebook earlier, and she was using text messaging on Pam's phone. She had a device earlier that gave her access to the to YouTube, so she was watching YouTube Shorts before that. But it's really hard, and we met a family just over the weekend. We were at the pool. Their daughter is 8 years old, and they have friends with fully loaded iPhones, fully functioning devices, which is really hard to understand. But I know I know what the dangers are of social media. Emily is not on social media yet. She's not, doesn't can't do messaging with people unless she actually knows them. If she's in a game or on a website or something. But Sri, what are some of the suggestions that you have for parents who are dealing with this issue? You raised two wonderful twins, Durga and Krishna, and you were a social media, kind of everyman. Like that's what your life was all about for so many years, and still is to a certain extent. But with Twitter and Instagram and posting to different platforms and taking pictures of food and restaurants and selfies, the whole 9 yards. How did you kind of manage to balance that with modeling good behavior for your kids?
Well, thank you for saying all that, but I also want to say that I don't want to give anybody the impression that everything just went very smoothly on our part or the kids. That's only what you've seen, Neil, from a distance. But there were a couple of things that we did that I recommend to everybody to do. And the first is to model your behavior, because the kids see what you're doing. Are you choosing to read a book, or are you choosing to be on your phone? That they learn that and they watch that. So we have this thing you may have heard of called Get Caught Reading. Like, take pictures of your kids when they're reading in places and make sure you get caught reading actual books, actual magazines, newspapers, whatever. That's one thing you can do. And then we have this rule: no phones at the dining table except to take a photograph. You can take the photograph of the food, put it away. And we kept saying that to them when the kids were so young, 2, 3, 4. They saw us say this: no phones, no electronics at the dining table. And then once in a while we'd break the rule, and then the kids would say it, and we would videotape them saying, no, hey dad, no phones at the dining table, whatever. And then you have that video, and then 5 years later you play it to them to say, look, this is what you believe this. Now why you into all of this? The good news is that these bell-to-bell cell phone bans, one of them done by our friend Raj Goyal in New York, and the new move in many countries to go to 16 for social media, I think those things are going to help reduce the amount of interest there is around this stuff, though I don't know if that'll work, but we hope it will.
Hopefully it will. I want to bring in a few comments from folks who are watching. Thank you. Stefan said earlier that he agrees 100% about paying attention to numbers. We were talking about vanity metrics earlier. I care about sharing my visual work and making my social presence one that people enjoy going to seeing on a daily basis. The joy I get when I hear that my photos make someone's day better and makes them happy in general is what I care about. He said, it makes me happy to make others happy. It's not a popularity contest. I think that's a very valuable lesson we can and should teach our youth. Care about a meaningful social presence, not being popular. Earlier, Sri, one of the things that we haven't touched on, and I don't know that we have time for, but my mom mentions that a lot of social media is abused during election season, and the whole misinformation, disinformation, how people are being manipulated to get riled up about a certain cause or a certain grievance. That's a whole show in and of itself in terms of what it can do to folks and the impact it's had. Our friend Walter Grayson, Gray Sage, says how we stop the addiction is to speed as efficiency. Stop the addiction to speed as efficiency that drives people to anxiety and depression because they cannot stop looking for more engagement and new info. How do we stop that addiction? I think is a very good question. John threw in an interesting point. Instead of blaming the tech companies, we should police ourselves and train our kids and friends and relatives to be much more aware of how we use social media and generally conduct our life. Many of us are not engaging with one another in one-on-one channels. The interesting thing about that is that my understanding, Sri, is that a lot of social media kind of activity is moving to one-on-one direct messages and small group chats, and it's kind of moving away from the posts and comments and the conversations that used to take place there. Have you seen that in your social media use?
I think that's what I was saying before, that there are definitely more smaller circles of people. And John, I think you say we shouldn't blame the companies, but this is the same logic that says we don't blame the gun companies, right? We don't blame the gun companies. Everybody should go out and be better. People should be better. Shouldn't shoot each other. The guns are not to be blamed. I think the parallel here is very, very logical and similar and correct, that these social media companies, Mark Zuckerberg, when he chooses to not tweak the algorithm that will hurt the girls, how do you not blame him? Why would we absolve him of this? I just don't understand. As much as we might like the fact that these companies are doing really well and have done great things or whatever, at least perceived. And now with someone like Elon Musk in charge, right? You saw as soon as Musk saw AI, what did he the number one thing you could do with Grok AI was to undress young women or old women or whatever you wanted on social media, on using this thing. So the same terrible people who are in charge of social are now in charge of AI. And therefore you can draw a direct line from about who to blame for these things. There was a vision of the internet where this was not all based on engagement. Even LinkedIn, which has a lot of problems, LinkedIn's best thing it ever did was stop counting at 500 connections, right? You've seen that 500 plus is all they put. They have some followers and all that, but that didn't become an obsession because of that. Nobody said, oh, I've seen people say, she has 1,000 followers on Twitter. She's worth this much. This other person has 10,000 followers. She is this much. So she's 10 times more valuable because of the number of followers which she has. One of the most influential people I know in Philadelphia in the tech space has like 800 followers on Twitter. And you think, this is nobody. I'm not going to pay attention to them. They don't care. They don't matter when they really matter. But because this way that we use these vanity metrics, it's been a problem. So I'm hoping that some of these companies will turn around and try different things to tamp down on this. But as long as Musk is in charge, as long as Zuckerberg is in charge, these tools are not going to change, and we'll all pay the price, and our kids will pay the price.
Before we start moving to wrap up today's show, I just want to make a quick announcement. Our next episode is going to be September 10th, Thursday, September 10th, the second Thursday of the month. And our guest is going to be Marina Perry. Now, she is a friend of the family. She Pam and her mom actually went to kindergarten together. But Marina just graduated from college, and she's going to talk about the invisible scars from a vicious dog attack. 2 years ago, she was attacked by a dog, and that left some very physical and visible scars. But it's the mental health impact, the PTSD, the trauma that she's still dealing with, and that she's working through, that she'll share with us. So I'm very much looking forward to having her join the show. That's going to be Thursday, September 10th. And we'll be putting the links up on our website and social media. And as we've mentioned a few times, we get support from Digimentors, from Sri, to produce the show. The tools that we're using, StreamYard and Vimeo, are thank you for not just the being able to produce a show, but then amplifying it, sharing it with folks. Many of the people watching today, including Stefan and Paula, are from our Digimentors family. So I just want to thank you, Sri, again, for all the support you've given for the show. The first thing that you said when I said I have this idea about doing a show on mental health, you said find a co-host. And Dawn, I hit the jackpot. Not that I kind of brought you on board, you kind of brought yourself on board.
I did.
I asked her if she'd be the first guest on this show about mental health, and she said, sure, but can I be your co-host? And she got the job right away. I do want to end on a kind of on a slightly different note, because Dawn, you wrote in your post, in your blog post, about how you're using social media today. You use it for a number of causes, for Denim Day, for advocacy work. It's not all bad. There is a role for social media in the work that we do. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, especially for Denim Day and advocacy, I think I schedule posts during the month of April to run every hour on the hour, and they're all educational tools. They're support tools. They're memes that give statistics, that say things like, I believe you, you are not alone. And just as much as those images of skinny girls that I watch when I'm playing games affect me, so do positive messages. So do things that support people who are experiencing mental health and trauma. And when we start to inundate people with kindness and love and support and caring messages, I think that resonates with people just as much as some of those negative things.
And I would share that, I've for a number of groups that I've worked with United Way locally for 5 years in Washington State, and then or I think it was 4 years and 5 years at the headquarters in DC. Social media can be used for good. It can be used to share examples of volunteering, examples of impact. Just this week, I meant to say a word about it earlier, but Dolly Parton, who passed away, she worked with United Ways and a number of nonprofits on Dolly's Imagination Library, giving out more than 300 million books to kids 0 to 5 years old. And a lot of that was spread and shared over social media. She also was, a big, she also shared her own mental health struggles and talked about, coming of it getting so bad that she was even writing a suicide note at one point. But the fact that you can use social media to share good work, to share positive messaging, the work that we do, Sri, with the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation, to share, some of the civil rights history, some of the examples that John Lewis and Dr. King gave us. To me, it feels like there's good in the world. There's good social media in the world. I won't obsess over how many people liked the post or saw the video, but the fact that people can talk about good trouble, people can share inspiration, I think is worthwhile. I'm going to give you the last word, Sri, as we've approached the hour. Before we do that, I just want to make sure that Connie gets her comment in. Great show. Thank you for the stimulating discussion. And Thomas is watching on LinkedIn. Sri, I don't know if you know Thomas. Social capital
Great guy
measured.
who does a lot of great digital work, and by the way, is an amazing chef on top of that, and is a great entrepreneur.
Oh, so he says social capital measured, verified positive contribution to people, communities, knowledge, nature, food systems, education, and civic life. The central principle should be social capital is earned by useful contribution, not by popularity. I think that's a great point. My mom is also sharing that many youngsters are radicalized due to social media. So there's that side of it as well. But on this point of social media being having a useful tool where it can inspire, it can provide, do good work. What are your thoughts and experience with that?
Yeah, I think it starts from, what Thomas said was also good, made lots of good points, that if we can be generous online, think about helping other people and not about pointing to yourself, you're going to get much more out of it than you put in. By the way, Neil, a big point we made in the promotion of the show that I didn't get to say, that I do want to say now, is
Please.
that I believe if you can delay your kids every 6 months, that you can delay your kid getting into social media, you get a year or two of better mental health outcomes on the other side. So if you have a young kid, a teenager, preteen, whatever, delay it as much as possible, and you will see a direct correlation on the other side. So please do that if you can.
Delay kids getting on social media. That is a key. This has been another episode of Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health. We focused on social media and mental health today, not just around teens and kids, but also adults and how it impacts us. Our guest was Sri Srinivasan, the CEO and co-founder of Digimentors, former chief digital officer of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and a professor of this newfangled media back in the day. Sri, when was it that you started at Columbia Journalism School?
I started teaching in 93. We taught our first digital classes in 95. I taught my first digital classes in the spring of 95. But I'm glad digital media exists and social media, but with AI, we're seeing all the possible problems on steroids.
So if you did join us late, again, you can find the replay on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, my website, and also Sri's YouTube, because we're live on Sri's YouTube as well. So thank you. Jonathan says, great program. Thank you. Thomas gives us the prayer hands. And I'll give the last word to Grace Sage. Outstanding. Great job, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Tachi got in a great show as well right before I went to close the show. So thank you for joining us. And we will see you the second Thursday in September for our next episode. Thank you. Bye-bye.